encouraging us in our efforts. I'd like to ask Representative Bob Filner to come up and just give us a few words about this. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I want to thank the American Kurdish Information Network for continuing this struggle for human dignity with the Vigil for Peace, and of course those who are beginning the fast today. This is an admirable example of human determination in the face of the oppression of the Kurdish people. I'm a United States Congressman from San Diego, and I'm here for one simple reason, and that is to express my support for the Kurdish people's struggle for freedom, justice, and self-determination. Of course, the symbol of that struggle is the democratically elected representative to the Turkish parliament, now imprisoned Leyla Zana. She was imprisoned because the Turkish government thought she was making too much progress in her endeavors for peace. But they cannot imprison her picture, which you see everywhere, her words, her courage, and her inspiring story. They live on in all of us, and that's why we are here today. As many of you know, 143 members of Congress have signed a letter to President Clinton urging him to seek Leyla Zana's immediate and unconditional release from prison. So many of us in Congress are standing with Leyla Zana and the Kurdish people, and we are becoming, as a people, more and more aware of the plight of the Kurds. Because of your activism, your vigil, and your fast, the entire world is becoming more aware of the oppression Kurds face in Turkey and the struggle for self-determination. You are bringing us closer to the day when once again the sun will shine on a land everyone, and I mean everyone, will know as Kurdistan.
Thank you, Representative Filner. We are now going to ask Mr. Eric Luther, who is with Esteban Torres' office, to please come up here and read a statement from the Congressman. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here, not only personally, but on behalf of Congressman Torres, who was one of the original members of Congress to circulate the letter to the President, which this fast is focusing in on. If I may, with your indulgence, read the statement from the Congressman, who is currently in transit to Washington, but is here in his words and in his heart. Members of the press, colleagues, friends, and the courageous people who are here today initiating this fast for peace in Kurdistan and for the freedom of Leyla Zana and other elected representatives who are currently under arrest in Turkey for exercising their right of free speech on behalf of the Kurdish people. We're here to honor those who will be fasting, and through our words and statements to let them know that they are not alone, that the nonviolent action begun here today is noted and supported. This cause is a just one. This fast seeks to focus attention on what is an undeclared war against the Kurdish people, which rages currently through Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Turkey. I appreciate that some of the most committed and conscientious activists for human rights take on the challenge of a fast in order to make visible an issue of injustice. Today, just such a group of persons are taking on the cause of the jailing of Leyla Zana and of the other democratically elected Kurdish members of the Turkish parliament. I want to reiterate that Leyla Zana was arrested in the Turkish parliament building and stripped of her office in part because she spoke openly before a body of the U.S. Congress. Her offense was to tell our Congressional Helsinki Commission the specifics of the tolls which the Kurds have suffered at the hands of our NATO ally, the Turkish government. Mrs. Zana spoke in exercise of her rights of free speech in a nonviolent manner. Her words were said to have violated Turkey's strict freedom of expression laws. For those of us who support the full practice of democracy, it is particularly painful that those who have arrested Leyla Zana and her colleagues are long-term NATO allies of the United States. I urge President Clinton and his advisors to pay close attention to the issues which motivate those who are fasting here today. I ask that President Clinton instructs our Secretary of State to raise Mrs. Zana's case and the case of other imprisoned Kurdish parliamentarians with the Turkish authorities and to seek her and their release. I urge also that the Turkish authorities take steps to release the democratically elected representatives of their Kurdish citizens. I honor the integrity, the conviction, the conscience, and the will of those of you who have undertaken this fast. I wish you strength in your vigil, and I pray that the eyes and ears of my colleagues and my president will be open to your pleas. On behalf of all of us, I thank you for your effort.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ruther. It looks like we have some sound now, which is super. I would now like to ask my boss, Mr. Kani Zulum, the director of the American Kurdish Information Network and one of our fasters, to come up here and give a few words.
Dear friends and fellow Kurds, I want to thank you all for coming here. It means a great deal to us. We hope you'll come back again. We want your visits. We want your solidarity and your prayers of peace. We intend to be here for some time to come. We're gathered here for peace and for the freedom of Leyla Zana. One is related to the other, and both are presently beyond our reach. We seek peace for ourselves and for our loved ones. We want liberty for Leyla Zana and her imprisoned friends. This is not just our longing, but also of millions of Kurds and their friends like you around the world. Our fast is part of a great dream of millions of Kurds who have been denied a peaceful life because, in the words of great Turkish writer Yaşar Kemal, the greed and the racism of our neighbors, the twin cancers of humanity, as he puts it, have denied us and our offspring what many people across the world take for granted: the freedom to speak one's mother tongue, the freedom to express one's most intimate thoughts in that language, and the freedom to preserve one's identity. Thus, this fast is a test, a protest, if you will, of the way our neighbors in particular and the nations of the world in general are treating us in this world. We want to serve them notice that they have utterly failed in their responsibilities as the custodians of our faith. We seek to rekindle their humanity, cure them of their indifference, and instill in them a sense of responsibility. We need your help to free ourselves. We as a whole, as a human family, can never be free when millions are denied their right to self-determination and the freedom to peacefully live their lives. Here, I'd like to tell you of our neighbors, the people who have made it their work to deny us our humanity. They have introduced a culture of violence to our lives. Just look at the pictures around yourself. Kurdish father and his child cut down by poison gas in Iraq. Kurdish activists blindfolded and machine-gunned in Iran. And Turkish soldiers posing triumphantly over their game, the Kurds in Turkish Kurdistan. But what have the nations of the world done to stop this madness that has become the rule rather than exception in Kurdistan? They have supplied these misguided neighbors of ours who are ruled by some of the most unscrupulous brutes with weapons, state-of-the-art helicopters and planes. Just to give you an example, in Iraqi Kurdistan, Saddam Hussein, the butcher of Baghdad, has planted 3 million made-in-Italy mines. I don't want to sound all doom and gloom in this day of remembrance for the Kurds and hope for our fasters. Let me at this time note that, as a Kurd, I was overjoyed that Jody Williams was recognized for her work by the Nobel Committee that awarded her the Peace Prize. If people like Saddam have become the noxious fumes of this world, people like Jody Williams are keeping a vigil on it, challenging us to go beyond ourselves and stop supplying brutes like Saddam with mines. Jody, wherever you may be, thank you for all that you do for trying to stop our march of folly on the minefields. Too many Kurds have taken that road, and too many have been crippled for life. It is a road better left untraveled. Jody, this Kurd will remain grateful to you for as long as he lives. Leyla Zana is another selfless and fearless individual, a giant of a woman born among one of the weakest peoples of the world. Her story is the stuff of legends, a chronicle of resistance. Many Kurdish women have suffered great injustices at the hands of their oppressors. Leyla Zana has had her share of these brutalities too. Many have recoiled but Leyla has fought back and prevailed. Today, even in prison, she remains defiant and a source of inspiration to the Kurds and their friends all over the world. This Kurdish woman was elected to the only parliament that was allowed to her on October 20, 1991, 6 years ago today. The day is a historic one, for on that day, the Kurdish people, still the subjects of an oppressive government, were finally entrusted with the choice to elect their own representatives. They chose Leyla Zana, Hatip Dicle, Selim Sadak, Orhan Doğan, and 14 other deputies as their representatives. I was present when our people took that step into the realm called democracy. For a change, we Kurds thought the dawn of living with our civil liberties had arrived. Some of us even dreamed that, free at last, we too could contribute our share to the march of humanity for the good. That precarious dream lasted for only a brief moment. Leyla basked in its glory, spoke Kurdish, our language that was banned for 70 years, freely. She came here and testified in the United States Congress to have this country, the symbol of democracy, to side with the Kurdish hopes for freedom. Alas, her plea fell on deaf ears. This country put its trust in the generals of the Turkish military than in the Kurdish representatives who longed for democratic ideals. The ugly war that Leyla had seen unfold in the lands of the Kurds intensified and has now begun to consume both the oppressed and the oppressor, along with turning the region into an environmental disaster. This fast is an attempt to turn back the clock, to give a second chance to the democratic forces that never received any serious support from this country. Leyla Zana and her 17 other Kurdish friends who were elected on that fall day represent the only hope for a lasting solution to the Kurdish question. The Middle East will not have peace so long as the Kurds are denied their most basic human rights. A region so vital to the national and spiritual interests of this country should not be left to the tender mercies of people like Saddam, Tehran, and Ankara. The Kurds here and at home long for peace and the freedom of Leyla Zana and the other duly elected Kurdish leaders of their choice. If elections are good for you as Americans and you care very much that your will matters, the Kurds of the Middle East ask for the same thing and nothing more. We seek to restore the Kurds their will, and their will demands that Leyla Zana be free and serve as the representative of the Kurds. Americans cherish their choice. We wish to remind them that by remaining aloof to ours, or worse, by helping those who deny ours to us, they risk being hypocrites. This country is a great country and can do great things if it only remains true to its ideals. Those ideals demand that America side with us, the fasters, with Leyla Zana, with the Kurds. We are here to see if America is true to its ideals. We are here to test its commitment to democracy. If we fail, history surely will vindicate us. If we succeed, we will be advancing the cause of peace and democracy. In the days ahead, as we get weaker and to lie down, to continue our fast, we ask you to stand up for peace and the freedom of Leyla Zana now. Thank you very much.
Okay, our next speaker will be Catherine Cameron Porter, the president of Human Rights Alliance and another one of our fasters.
Connie, you really said it well. And I know that there will be many people who stand with us and who will help us finish this job, so to speak. As a woman, I am really affected by Leyla Zana. Women who work so hard to work within the system so that they can bring the voices to the table of women and children. A woman who finally made it to the parliament of her country and is arrested for speaking the truth about her people. I am participating in this effort because of my frustration with my own government. I have tried everything humanly possible to turn our policy around, to see that the United States stands for what it supposedly stands for freedom, for justice, for democracy. There is no real freedom or democracy in Turkey. There is no real freedom or democracy for 30 million Kurds, the largest ethnic group in the world without its own state. A group of people who have no friends but the mountains, where the press shies away from looking what's really happening every day as warships go in and bomb innocent people in refugee camps, where Saddam continues his aggression, and where the Iranian regime attacks innocent people. I've been in all of these regions. I've held hands with women who have been sexually tortured in front of family members. I've held hands with women whose sons and husbands and brothers have been taken away for smoking a Kurdish cigarette. It is a great tragedy of our time, and there comes a point where you have to say enough is enough. What do we stand for? And I am going to stand with these noble people who are going to risk their lives in order to bring a message of hope to people without hope in Kurdistan. I will simply like to say how much I admire Connie in his leadership, his commitment, his moral character, his nonviolent approach. There are a number of members of Congress, of course, who are very supportive, including my husband, John Porter. But he is in his district today, will be here tonight, and he will be a strong supporter of what's going on. And I'm very happy that the numbers of members of Congress is growing who have signed our letter. And I also want to thank Bianca Jagger, who's been a true friend to people in peril all over this world, and we're very happy to have her here. And I'd like to simply close by using the Thomas Jefferson quote, that when I think of God and I think of him as being just, I tremble for my country. Thank you.
It is now a great honor to ask Bianca Jagger, a human rights activist worldwide, to come up and speak about our fast.
Here because sometimes we need to speak for those who have no voice. For years now, there's been an indictment against the Kurds in Iran, in Iraq, in Turkey. And what has been the result of the suffering when the first woman Kurd elected to Parliament comes to the United States to speak of the plight, she's put in jail because she's called a traitor. She's been in jail for the last 3 years, and she's been given a sentence of 15 years. We have to stand and speak up against the inhumanity and the injustice that are committed against the Kurds. As Catherine said, the Kurds are the largest ethnic minority, 30 million people without a state. And the United States is providing military aid to Turkey. And we are here to request from President Clinton to demand that Leyla Zana be relieved, as well as the other 3 members of Parliament, and that the atrocities committed against the Kurds should be stopped. And I like to quote what President Clinton said in 1996. He said, "We can and should be the world's very best peacemaker. Please, President Clinton, we believe that you were right. Can you please do something about the Kurds and Leyla Zana?" Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am now going to read a statement by Jennifer Harbury. She fasted outside of the White House for more than 30 days. She writes to us, "Dear friends, it deeply saddens me to watch as my Kurdish friends once again sit down to fast for human rights, so basic that they should never require struggle. Such rights should be automatic, beyond any question, above any argument, and yet, for the Kurdish people, such rights remain but a dream for which they must continue to suffer. It saddens me to think that my friends must fast in order to be heard on such issues as self-determination, cultural and religious freedoms, and ethnic recognition and respect. The Kurdish peoples compose one of the largest ethnic groups in the world, and yet they have no homeland and suffer abuse and repression in many countries. One of their foremost leaders, the courageous Congresswoman Leyla Zana, has been imprisoned under brutal conditions in Turkey. And what was her crime? She merely spoke out here in Washington, D.C. on behalf of the people she represents. In this respect, she is not alone. Other Kurdish leaders have been imprisoned for similar reasons. The time must come when all peoples are respected for their race, their ethnic origins, their cultural heritage, and their religions. The persecution and repression of those who are different must come to an end. We all have the right to be who we are and to determine and control our own lives. I offer my profound sympathy and solidarity with the Kurdish people today as they begin their fast, and call upon our national leaders to press for the release of Leyla Zana and all other similarly and unjustly detained Kurdish leaders. Sincerely, Jennifer Harper. Our next statement will be read by Sister Patricia Cromer, and it is by Holly Neer.
Holly Neer is a marvelous lady. She is a folk singer, composes a lot of her own music. I'm sure you've heard her sing at some point. She is a feminist, and she is a human rights activist. It often takes a few people focusing on one person to bring attention to the condition of thousands. I join those who protest the imprisoned Leyla Zana in hopes that we can, through worldwide effort, secure her release from prison, as well as encourage an outcry critical of the treatment of Kurds suffering in Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Turkey. It is not a crime to be born into a race or culture, and that birth should never be used as a rationalization for political or personal murder.
We have a letter written by Leyla Zana to Catherine Porter, and I'm going to read it for you. Dear friend, I'm writing this letter not as a politician, but as a mother and as a woman. I have always appreciated your friendship, and I know for a fact how caring you are towards the Kurdish people. Nevertheless, I was extremely touched to hear of your decision to fast on our behalf and for the Kurdish people. Such a selflessness and solidarity made me forget, if only for a brief moment, my pain and suffering. I wanted to write you and relate to you my happiness. Your friendship is a source of strength and inspiration. I feel stronger today because of it. I am very grateful to you. Thousands of miles may separate us, but your heart feels the suffering of our people. Your stand on our behalf is an extraordinary act and deserves the utmost admiration. I am finding it difficult to put my feelings into words. May suffice it to say that you will remain in the memory of the Kurds and of us, parliamentarians, so long as there are Kurds. Hope is in our side. Peace, freedom, and democracy are overcoming their obstacle because of people like you. I hope our friendship will be an enduring one. With love and respect, Leyla Zana, Member of Parliament.
We'd now like to ask Jack Healy, the director of the Human Rights Action Center, to come up and make a statement.
I first would like to address the fasters that in the long history of fasting, which is sacred to all the religions of the earth, you will do this on the land here at the Capitol, but I'd like you to think it is the land of the American Indian. For if you do that, the land will rise up and will protect you in this fast, because your sacredness brings sacredness from the American Indian, and it will return blessings to you. The long history of fasting of Dr. King, Stephen Biko, and many, many thousands of others, innocent people in jails. It's a long line of history. And you come from a people with a great religion, Islam. You come from a great land with great sacred rights, customs that protect the family, and the innocent, and the kind, and the decent. And so as you go to fast, you should know that our hearts are with you. For what you express in this fast is what we all in the United States need to take to heart as a single standard for human rights. And you should know, like we know, that many of the people in power today belong to human rights groups that said they belong to an organization with a single standard for human rights. And yet they sit in government positions today and do not exercise that. For they are part of the foreign policy of the United States that kisses the cancer of the Turkish human rights abuses. And it's important to remember that the single person is the power of God and the power of our Constitution. It's the power of your people. It's the single person. And so as you struggle for this, we around you want to bring our hearts and our minds and our kindness to you. In the Vienna Human Rights Conference a few years ago, they wouldn't let the Dalai Lama in. And so I went to your people. And they provided for me about 400 people to block the entrance into the Human Rights Conference because they would not let the Dalai Lama in. Your people came to the fore like that, before everybody else. So in a sense, I want to say to you fasters, as you do this, you bring to us a great hope, a hope of a single standard for human rights. For you, the Kurdish people, are decent and kind and great. And we Americans support you in all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another letter from Leyla Zana that is written to the fasters. It was sent on October 8th from the Ankara closed prison, and it will be read first in Turkish by Ferda, and second it will be read by Sister Patricia Cromer in English.
Sevgili dostlar, Kürt halkının özgün siyasi kimliğiyle ilk kez Türkiye Büyük Millet Meclisi'nde ifade edilmesini 6. yıl dönümü olan 20 Ekim 1997 tarihinde başlatmış olduğunuz açlık grevini saygıyla selamlıyoruz. 20 Ekim 1991 tarihi Kürt halkımızın siyasal iradesinin parlamentoya yansıması dışında Kürt halkının barışçıl niyetine aracı olması ve yıllardan beri de red, inkar ve imha kavramlarıyla özetlenebilecek devlet politikalarına hayır dediği bir referandum günü olarak belleklerde kalacaktır. Yıllardan beri onurlu bir duruşla püskürtülmeye çalışılan zulüm ve baskıya ve bunların açtığı onulmaz yaralara rağmen Kürt halkının barışa, özgürlüğe olan inancını yitirmiştir. Umudu her geçen gün tazelenerek artmakta, güç kazanmaktadır. Kürt sorununun barışçıl yöntem ve yaklaşımlarla çözüme sadece Kürt halkının değil, Türk kardeş halkının da özgürleşmesi, açlık, sefalet, yoksulluk ve yaşamın her alanını etkisi altına alan savaşın kirliliğinden kurtulması anlamındadır. Ayrıca Orta Doğu'nun güvenli bölge olmasını sağlayacağınızdan dünya barış açısından da önemlidir. Bu nedenle gerek imza kampanyasına gerekse de açlık grevine sorunun ABD ve Kongre düzeyinde tartışılıyor olmasından dolayı yüksek değer veriyoruz. Baştan Sayın John Parker ve eşi Sayın Bayan Catherine Porter, Sayın Elizabeth Warren ve Sayın Stephen Torres ve Sayın Frank Fall en içten minnet duygularıyla şükran ve teşekkürlerimizi sunuyor, kabulünü rica ediyoruz. Yine etkinliklere imza kampanyasında katılarak destek sunan dostlara, açlık grevine katılan, nezaket içinde ve fedakarlığını gösteren diğer dostlarımıza bir kez daha selamlıyoruz. Sevgili dostluk ve barış dileklerimizle Leyla Zana, Hatip Dicle, Selim Sadak, Orhan Doğan. Thank you.
It's indeed an honor to read this. To the participants of the fast, dear friends, we greet you with respect as you undertake a fast on the 6th anniversary of our election to the Turkish Parliament on October 20th, 1997. That election not only marked the manifestation of the Kurdish people's will to have us represent them in the Parliament, but it also sent a clear message to all observers that our people rejected the policies of the Turkish government, policies that amounted to the denial of our existence. The Kurdish people, despite the years of oppression, have not lost faith in peace and freedom. Our hope remains alive and is strengthened day by day. The resolution of the Kurdish question will not just bring freedom to the Kurds, but also to the Turks, who, because of this war, have been reduced to live in abject misery. Such an eventuality will also bring stability to the Middle East and contribute to the cause of peace in the world. We see your fast and your campaign to seek our freedom as auspicious steps and believe it is important to raise these issues in the United States Congress. We wish to express our sincere gratitude to Congressman John Porter and his wife, Catherine Porter, Congresswoman Elizabeth First, Congressman Esteban Torres, and Congressman Frank Wolf for their leadership in the congressional effort. We also wish to express our gratitude to other representatives who have supported the initiative and our friends who are undertaking the fast. With best wishes, Leyla Zana, Member of Parliament, Hatip Dicle, Member of Parliament, Selim Sadak, Member of Parliament, Orhan Doğan, Member of Parliament. God bless them.
And finally, we would like to ask, we were going to have Reverend Joseph Eldridge, sorry, from the Spiritual Life Center at American University come, but he couldn't make it today. Instead, we are lucky to have Father Bill Callahan of the Quixote Center here to speak.
Let us pray. O God, you who cherish the poor of the earth and the oppressed, you who watch out for their rights when no one else cares, we ask your blessing this day, a blessing of non-violence, but a blessing of the power to proclaim a mighty message with this fast. In the name of those who fast and all the people whom they represent, we pray that as their spirit grows stronger, even as their bodies are denied food, we pray that their spirit may speak like lightning to the hearts and minds of the people of the U.S. Congress, that they may strengthen all of us until the violence is swept away and replaced by brothers and sisters living in harmony, living in democracy, free to exercise their rights. And we pray this day that we may soon see the freedom of Leyla Zana, and that she may soon, with all her brothers and sisters, celebrate in her land, where you will bless them all forever and ever.